Hello and welcome to the moment that you've all been waiting for all spoiler season. That's right, it's time for the Golden Pig Awards of Phyrexia All Will Be One. Now again, on these awards, I will be taking you through my top picks for my favorite commanders from this brand new set, and the commander precons as well. And just a reminder, of course, these picks are 100% based off of my own opinions, and your picks for your favorites from this set might differ, and that's okay. And another reminder, yeah, just because these are my favorite commanders doesn't mean that they're necessarily the most powerful commanders in the set and the precons. Also, if you don't like my picks for one reason or another, make sure you blame Eddie in the comments below. And now with all that said, let's jump into it. So, starting things off at number 10, we've got Kinzu of the Black Coven, a 5/4 Phyrexia vampire with flying that costs 4 and a black and has, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's 1/1 and that's toxic. 1, and a quick reminder, toxic, a brand new mechanic from this set, a brand new keyword. Players dealt combat image by it also get a poison counter. So yeah, poison is back, and now every single one of your creatures, well, or should I say a version of them, can get toxic. There's a lot of exciting things that you can actually do with this commander, and yeah, we have seen somewhat similar ones to this, but I really like kind of that addition of, hey, you know what? You can replace your non-token creatures when they die with a little bit of life. You get a copy of them. Now that copy might just be a 1/1, but it can be even deadlier with that toxic. And of course, there are ways to take advantage of that and ways to take advantage of those creatures coming back into play. So when it comes to some budget buys that I'd be considering for building around this commander, well, Sad Robot, of course, comes to mind. ETB, go get a basic land to play tap, so ramp. And also when it dies, draw a card. So yeah, getting an extra copy of this, being able to get that ETB again, and that death trigger again. And yes, you would be getting the death trigger, even if you are exiling the non-token creature, because it's going to die first, then you're exiling it. It's not replacing that. It does not say instead. So yeah, you're getting that death trigger twice. Regardless, Plaguecrafter, another fantastic ETB to use and abuse with this. Enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature planeswalker. Each player can't, discards a card. For 3 mana, again, you're basically able to get that ETB twice, a huge effect. And yeah, actually with Plaguecrafter, you can sacrifice itself to its own ETB, so you can get that right away, forcing your opponent to sacrifice a second creature or planeswalker, or if they don't have those, discarding a card. Of course, when it comes to ETBs in Mono Black, Grey Merch Fast Fidel, Gary, that's right, is one of the best. Enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life for extra devotion to black. You gain life, life lost this way. So you're going to be gaining back some of that life you've been paying to make those creature token copies. And then some. Yeah, again, there are a lot of very powerful ETBs and death triggers that you can use and abuse thanks to this commander. And of course, in Mono Black, there are plenty of great sacrifice outlets that can ensure that you get those extra ETBs and LTBs when you need them. So yeah, Viserys here, a great example. Sacrifice a creature, scry 1. So some great initial card selection involved with that too. And of course, on top of that, yeah, when Viserys here is going to be coming back as a token, it's basically doing the exact same thing, but it's even better again because of that Toxic 1. Speaking of that Toxic 1 benefit, Ichor Rats. A 2/1 with Infect, and when it enters the battlefield, each player gets a poison counter. So yeah, you can get things going again just with that ETB, again, by, sacrificing this and getting it coming to play again. You're giving all players, again, a poison counter. That's, and you're giving it to yourself too, but that's fine. But your opponents each are getting 1, so that's what, 6 in total just from ETBs for your opponents. And then also, again, this has Infect, which does stack with Toxic. So when this hits your opponent, just as it is with Infect, 2/1, that's 2 poison counters. Then when you get back the 1/1 copy of it, Infect for 1 damage, and also Toxic 1, another 2 poison counters. This can dish out a lot of poison throughout the game. Speaking of which, Plague Stinger, 1/1 flying with Infect as well. So an evasive creature that can get thrown your opponents. And again, when you get that toxic copy of it, you can dish out even more hurt. So yeah, I think this commander's got a lot of potential, and I really like the design of Kinzu. But now it's time to move on to number 9 with a Zuri Stalker of Spheres. Yeah, a Simic commander, but one that goes about, well, card advantage in a different way. Yeah, it's not just, lands and card draw. This one encourages you to go really hard into Proliferate, a 3/3 Phyrexian Elf Warrior for 2 green-blue. Enters the battlefield, you can pay 3 if you do proliferate twice, and whenever you're proliferating, you are drawing a card. So yeah, you can proliferate. Just with this ET being, you gotta pay mana, but again, you are in Simic, you've got plenty of ways to ramp, and ways to actually really take advantage of that proliferating by helping you ramp. We'll talk about that here in a bit. But also, yeah, you get to draw 2 cards when you're paying for that. And of course, you got plenty of other great proliferate effects that you can really take advantage of to draw a ton of cards with this. And utilizing those proliferate effects, there are a lot of great ways to do that. Again, different kinds of counters. Poison is definitely a way you can do it as well. There's a lot of potential for this kind of a commander. And again, I'm excited to see Wizards again going in a somewhat different direction with a Simic commander, not just, leaning heavily into land ramp. So, of course, yeah, a very simple spell like a Tezzeret's Gambit can give you a ton of value. Again, sorcery for 3 and Phyrexian blue, so basically, yeah, 3 and 2 life. Draw 2 cards, then proliferate. So, basically, draw 3 cards for 3 mana and 2 life. Proliferate on top of that, and whatever other benefits you're getting from that. Thrumming Bird, a way to proliferate every single turn. A 1/1 flyer, deals counter to a player. Proliferate, and I guess I probably should have mentioned, proliferating means that you choose any number of permanents and or players and give each another kind of counter already there. So again, this can help with +1/+1 counters, -1/-1 counters on your opponent's creatures, poison counters, experience counters, etc., etc. Evolution Sage, 3/2 Elf Druid, that does a lot of work for you. Whenever a land enters battlefield under control, proliferate. Again, you are in Simic. There are plenty of ways to ramp, plenty of ways to get a ton of lands into play. And yeah, even with just say like an Evolving Wilds, that's proliferate 2, which again with your commander is going to be draw 2 cards. So this can get pretty absurd. And speaking of absurd, yeah, Everflowing Chalice, Multi-Kicker 2, enters battlefield, that many charge counters on it. Tap for a colorless-free charge counter on it. And yeah, you just need to get 1 charge counter on this to start, and then every single time you proliferate, you get an additional charge counter on it. So this can just get you a ton of mana on its own and really help you pay for your commander's ETB and then some. Again, you're kind of like getting 2 extra mana back every single time you do that, and also drawing cards. Anyways, Ominous Seas, another way to really take advantage of proliferating and drawing cards thanks to your commander. Whenever you draw a card, you get a foreshadow counter on Ominous Seas, and by removing 8 counters from it, you get an 8/8 Kraken. You can get a ton of counters on this incredibly quickly, again, with all the ways that you can proliferate, and also, again, all the ways you're going to be drawing cards when you're proliferating as well. Teferi's Time Twist. Blank spells like this one can be fantastic with this commander. Basically, exile target permanent you control, bring it back at the next end step, and if it's a creature, it enters with an additional counter on it. So yeah, you can get a counter on your commander, get your commander to an absurd amount of power, and also, yeah, just utilize that ETB when you need to. So yeah, I think I really like the direction of this brand new Simic commander, one that doesn't just lean heavily into ramp and card draw, one that encourages you to go about drawing cards in a different way, and that you can build in a couple of different directions too. Next up, though, number 8 with vishgrass, the Doom Hive, a 3/3 Phyrexian insect with Menace and Toxic 1 that costs 2 white, black, green. When it enters the battlefield, you're going to make 3 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. And on top of that, vishgrass gets +1 for each poison counter your opponents have. So this commander can take your opponents out in a lot of different ways. First up, you can make an army quite quickly with this commander. Again, every single time this ETBs, you get 3 toxic creatures. And yeah, there are plenty of ways to use and abuse that ETB, and we'll talk about them here in a second. But of course, on top of that, this commander also has Toxic itself. It's got Menace so it can get through. And also, this commander is going to encourage you to actually keep your opponents around. It's not going to encourage you really to just start taking out opponents one at a time with all those poison counters. It's going to encourage you to spread the love, spread that poison love around so that you can grow its own power. And yeah, this commander has the potential to be a 2-shot KO or even a 1-shot KO in certain circumstances. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do with this one. First up, when it comes to using and abusing that ETB, Ephemerate, a great blink spell. Basically, blink a creature, and it also has rebound, so you get to do it again. So yeah, basically, this is a 1-mana spell that can make us 6 Phyrexian Mites. And again, each of those have Toxic 1. That can be a lot of poison to spread around. Undying Malice and cards like those Feigned Death type effects. Until end of turn, target creature gains, and creature dies. Turn to the battlefield, tap your opponent's control with a counter on it. So yeah, basically, hey, you're trying to take out my commander? Nope, it's coming right back, and I get that ETB again. And speaking of again, Duelist Heritage, a great card. hey, whenever one or more creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of turn. First up, this can be a great political card. If your opponents are attacking, you're like, hey, you know what? Don't swing at me with that creature. I'll make it doubly as effective against that other play if you swing against them. So it's a great political tool. But of course, with toxic creatures, this is a great way to help them hit twice as hard. And, well, most importantly, hit twice so they apply that toxic twice, giving your opponent, well, in this case, 2 poison encounters instead of just 1. Now, when it comes to getting your creatures through, one great way to get your commander through is with Vorak Battlehorns. Equipped creature has trample and can't be blocked by more than one creature, which, well, kind of makes that trample redundant because, hey, you know what? Your commander has menace, so it can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, and Vorak Battlehorns basically says the exact opposite. Hey, it can't be blocked by more than one creature. So therefore, well, your commander is just unblockable with this. It means that your commander is going to be able to get through, dish out damage, again, get poison counters on your opponents, and at a certain point, if you've got enough poison counters on your opponents, again, it can be a 2-shot or even a 1-shot KO coming through unblockable on your opponents. Speaking of unblockable, behind the scenes, creatures you control have Skulk. This is a great effect for your mites. They can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Again, they are 1/1s. There's not going to be that many 1/1s on the board to block them, so you're going to be able to get through on a lot of players with your tiny Phyrexian Might army. And speaking of your army, Odric Lunar Marshal can help them as well, because at the beginning of each combat, creature control gain first strike until on turn you control a creature that has first strike. The same is going to be true for flying, death touch, double strike, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, skulk, trample, and vigilance. So yeah, basically, if you've got any keywords on the board, well, that's going to spread them out to all your creatures, essentially. Menace being one of them, so your commander's keyword is going to spread out to all your little Phyrexian mites and help them get through on your opponents. So yeah, again, vishgrass, I think you're a really interesting commander. Again, congratulations on your 8th place finish. But now it's time for us to move on to number 7 with Avika Enigma Goliath, a 6/6 Phyrexia Nightmare with flying and ward 3, pay 3 life. Oh, goodness gracious, that costs 5 blue, red, and it says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create X 1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens where X of that spell's mana value. They gain haste until end of turn. So this is a heavy hitter itself. Again, a 6/6 flyer that is really hard to deal with. Again, your opponent has to pay 3 extra mana and 3 extra life just to target it with a spell or an ability. Yes, it costs 7 mana, but it has a massive effect. Whenever you're casting your non-creature spells, you can get a ton of hasty goblin tokens. Basically, all of your spells, all your non-creature spells come with a massive army. So yeah, this commander can get ridiculous quite quickly, and there's a lot of exciting things that you can do with it. On top of it, just be able to hit your opponents hard as a, 6/6 evasive flyer that is really hard to deal with. And of course, when it comes to taking advantage of some massive non-creature spells, I mean, a spell like Explosive Singularity can be, well, quite explosive. It's a 10 mana spell, but you can reduce its cost for 1 for each creature you're tapping. And again, you're going to be making a ton of creatures, so this can easily cost you 2 mana in total, and it's going to deal 10 damage to any target. So this is basically just a massive damage spell that kind of just gives you a massive amount of damage on the board with a lot of tokens. 10 of them. Volcanic Salvo, 12 mana spell. It's going to be 12 tokens. It's going to cost X less to cast versus the total power creatures you control, which again can very easily be 10. So yeah, just costing red, 2 mana in total. It's going to deal 6 damage to each of up to 2 dark creatures and or planeswalkers, so you can spread out some damage. And of course, make a massive army. Speaking of massive, epic experiment. Put a lot of mana into that X. Make a lot of tokens just from casting this. But of course, on top of that, exile the top X cards of your library. Cast instant or sorcery spells with mana value X less amount paying their mana cost. Then put all cards exiled this way that weren't cast in your graveyard. Basically, again, this commander does not care where we cast our spells from. Where those non-creature spells are cast from does not matter. So cast a ton of instant sorceries off the top of your library and get even more creature tokens. So with that, yeah, our commander doesn't care for casting spells from the top of our library or also graveyard. Spell Twine. Hey, exile target instant sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. Copy them, cast them, exile Spell Twine. So 6 creatures from just casting Spell Twine, plus whatever, mana value of the other spells that we are casting for free. Speaking of free, Rousing Refrain. You can spend this for 3 for 1 in a red. Cast it every 3 turns, essentially, and basically adding red mana for each card in target opponent's hand. So this is a great ritual effect that we can keep getting again and again and again throughout the game. 5 free tokens when we get this, plus the mana that we are getting from it too. Surge to Victory, an incredible card with this deck. Exile target instant sorcery card from your graveyard. Creature you control get +X/+0 until turn. X that spell's mana value. So first up, just with that, that's probably going to be game ending. Again, if we, could exile a card like, Volcanic Salvo, that's +12/+0 for every single one of our creature tokens, which we're going to have a ton of. But if that wasn't all, hey, whenever a creature you control deals counter to a player this turn, you copy the exiled card, cast copy without paying its mana cost, so a ton of additional value from that, a ton of additional tokens from that. Yes, can be a very, very big game-ending card, and there's a lot of massive game-ending plays with this new fantastic commander. But now we're moving on to number 6 with Karamonix, the Rat King, a 3/3 Phyrexian rat for 1 black that has Toxic 1, and on top of that, other rats you control have Toxic 1. On top of that, whenever Karamonix enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of rat cards from among them, put the revealed cards in your hand, put the rest of your library in a random order. So this is a rat tribal commander that many have been waiting for. Giving all of your rats Toxic is massive, making them incredibly deadly. And of course, on top of that, this has a lot of additional card advantage. This is getting you rats off the top of your library into your hand. You have a lot of potential with this kind of a commander. And yeah, again, many players out there have been waiting for that rat tribal commander to really fit the bill. And I think this one does. And yeah, these first 2 cards are probably going to be the only 2 cards on this episode that are outside of my own personal budget I'm going to mention, but I have to because, yeah, Relentless Rats, Rat Colony, these are both ones that you can have any number of them in your deck, and of course, they can be fantastic cards for a Rat Tribal deck. You can just build an entire deck that is literally just Relentless Rats or Rat Colony plus this commander, and you are good to go. So yeah, Relentless Rats, +1/+1 for each other creature named Relentless Rats, which is going to be a lot. Rat Colony, +1/+0 for each other rat you control. So being able to just build an entire deck around these is now very much a possibility, or even more a possibility, I should say, with this brand new commander. Regardless, back to a budget card, Typhoid Rats. Just a 1/1 for 1 mana with Death Touch, but again, adding Toxic 1 to that makes this incredibly deadly. Again, your opponents, hey, you don't want to block it because you've got, some good creatures in play. Too bad. Take a poison counter. So yeah, even a low-to-the-ground rat like this one can do a ton of work for you with this kind of a commander. Moving on, how about Stronghold Rats, a 2/1 with Shadow, so basically it's unblockable. Only creatures that have Shadow can block or be blocked by creatures with Shadow, so chances are it's going to be able to get through on basically anyone. And on top of that, whenever it does counter to a player, each player discards a card. Again, our commander can help with card advantage, so that's great. And of course, on top of that, yeah, being able to just get through with this essentially every turn with that Toxic 1 can be deadly. Speaking of deadly, Septic Rats, a 2/2 with Infect, so you're going to be dishing out even more poison with this. Again, at 2 for the Infect damage, plus the Toxic 1. Yes, those do stack. So basically, 3. Oh, and actually it's a little more even, because when it attacks, if a defending player is poisoned, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn, so it has the potential to give 4 poison counters on a hit, thanks to this brand new commander. Blight Belly Rat, a brand new card that can really help us out as well. 2/2 with Toxic 1. When it dies, proliferate. So yeah, spread out those poison counters, get some more on your opponents, and take them out quite quickly again with this fantastic new Rat Commander. Now, though, let's move on to the top 5 with number 5 with Skrelv Defector Might, a 1/1 Phyrexian Might for just a single white mana with Toxic 1, it can't block, and by paying Phyrexian White, tap, choose a color, another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It also can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. So this is kind of like a Phyrexian Might mom in a way, if you know that card. But yeah, basically, hey, low to the ground, toxic commander that you can just get down early, get poison counters started on your opponents, get more and more of those counters on your opponents with proliferate effects, and of course, utilize that fantastic ability to, well, protect a creature, help get it through, and also give it Toxic 1. So there's some really exciting things that you can do with this low to the ground brand new commander. For example, how about Lost Leonin, a 2/1 with Infect for just 2 mana in total, 1 and a white. Already a low to the ground creature that can get some poison counters on opponents quite quickly, but of course now with this commander, you can also give it Toxic 1, which, as I mentioned before, does stack. So this is going to be giving out 3 poison counters on hit, essentially. And again, you've got a way to protect it and to get it through. Oh goodness, your opponents are going to be in trouble though when you get Phyrexian Juggernaut out into play. A 5/5 that has to attack each turn if able. Oh, and it does have Infect. So yeah, that is half essentially the amount of poison counters you need to give opponent to take them out. Yeah, I mean, if you give it Toxic 1 and help get through, yeah, 6, sure, why not? But yeah, of course, we'll talk about some ways here in a bit to maybe give this, I don't know, double strike to make it into a one-shot. Speaking of that, Fencing Ace, double strike, 1/1 for just 2 mana. Again, by giving this Toxic 1, it's going to hit once, it's going to hit twice. That opponent's getting 2 poison counters for the price of 1. But in an even bigger way, a new card with Jawbone Duelist can do even more. A 1/1 with double strike that costs 1 and a white. It's the exact same as, well, Fencing Ace, except it also has Toxic 1. And Toxic does stack. So it's going to have an instance of Toxic 1 here. Plus, when you utilize your commander to give it Toxic 1, it's also going to have another instance of Toxic 1. So when it double strikes your opponent, it hits once, gives 2 poison counters, hits twice, gives 2 more. This combination, again, can happen incredibly early. Again, turn 1, drop your commander. Turn 2, drop this. You can take players out incredibly quickly. Speaking of which, Bronze Guardian. Star 5, double striking golem. That's powers equal to the number of artifacts you control, which can be quite a bit. It's got Ward 2 and gives your other artifacts Ward 2 as well. Giving this Toxic can easily be a one-shot KO on your opponents. Have fun with that. And also, when it comes to having fun, grateful operation, do not forget about proliferate effects to just, again, be able to spread out those poison counters, to be able to just add to those poison counters that your opponents already have. And of course, yeah, you give this some, hexproof and basically unblockability to a color. It's already a 1/1 flyer. It's going to be able to get through. Yeah, I think this commander has a lot of potential. It's a very interesting and unique one, and I think it can do a lot of work for you. Next up, though, at number 4, let's move on to a very unique commander with Kethek Crucible Goliath, a 4/4 Phyrexian beast for 2 black and a red that says, at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do reveal cards in the top of your library to reveal a non-legendary creature card with lesser mana value, put it right on the battlefield, then put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. So this one's a very interesting commander. Kind of like a little bit of a chaos effect there, a little bit of a polymorph effect, but with a catch, again, you're not going to be able to hit legendary creatures, which you can take, and use to your advantage, which is great. And also, you have to hit creatures that have lesser mana value, which again, you can use to your advantage. And of course, there are plenty of great effects that you can really use and abuse with this. You can utilize, death triggers, you can utilize ETBs, you can utilize just a fantastic amount of abilities that you can really, really make the most of with a commander like this. And actually, this commander's got me thinking about some really weird builds around it, where maybe I just utilize an entire deck that wants to get out Gary again and again and again, and really utilize that ETB. Again, draining opponents based on your devotion to black, or Fanatic and Bogus. Again, when it comes to utilizing another devotion creature, damaging each of your opponents for your devotion to red. And yeah, those are going to be very specific decks, but outside of those specific decks, you can utilize, again, like I mentioned before, other great ETBs like a Combustible Gearhulk enters the battlefield. Target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If they don't, you're going to mill 3, then deal damage to the total mana value of those cards. And of course, with this kind of a build, you can utilize some massive mana value creatures and other effects as well, so your opponents might not want to take that risk. And of course, with sacrificing creatures, you can have other aristocrat-style effects to benefit from your creatures being sacrificed, and also utilize other sacrifice effects, like maybe on the Great ETB for Disciple of Bolas. Hey, enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature, gain X life, draw X cards, or X that creature's power. You can gain a ton from this, a ton of card advantage, and a ton of life gain. How about Sepulchral Primordial, though? A great ETB as well. 5/4 Intimidate, enters the battlefield for each opponent. You may put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard on the battlefield under your control. Basically, reanimate 3 creatures, and of course, you can utilize those as fodder for your commander, especially if there's some high-value mana creatures in there, so you can really get some really heavy hitters thanks to that. Speaking of which, Puppeteer Click, one that can help you out in a couple of different ways. 3/2 flyer, enters the battlefield, put target creature card from opponent's graveyard on the battlefield under your control, gains haste. At the beginning of the next end step, exile it though, but again, your commander also lets you sacrifice a creature your end step, so yeah, just make sure you stack it properly. You can sacrifice that opponent's creature for value. Also sacrifice the Puppeteer Click for value at a certain point, because that has persist, so it can come back and you can do that again. So yeah, this commander I think can be taken in a lot of interesting directions, and yeah, you can have some pretty wacky builds with it as well. Now it's time for us to move on to number 3, though, with Chiscoria Forged Tyran, a 5/4 dragon that costs 6 red, but you're never going to pay that much for this because it has affinity for artifacts. So it's going to cost 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. It's a flying hasty dragon. And also on top of that, whenever it attacks you, exile the top 5 cards of your library. You can cast an artifact from among them this turn. If you do, it has affinity for artifacts. Yeah, affinity is a very powerful thing. especially on a commander, because affinity can help you get around commander tax, or at least I should say, can help you pay for commander tax. So yeah, the more artifacts you get to play, the cheaper this can be. I mean, this 5/4 flying hasty dragon that is a fantastic attack trigger can cost as little as just 3 mana, and you can really take advantage of that in many ways. There are certain combos you can pull off of this, but also, yeah, just a good amount of value for this exciting commander that takes artifacts in a different direction. I mean, even just ways to actually flood the board early with some artifacts can be very beneficial for this commander. I mean, prize statue, hey, ETBs, or when upgrade from the battlefield, you get a treasure token. So at the very least, this is 2 for the price of 1, and that can really help reduce the cost of your commander a lot. Noble Spurs can go even further. A 2-mana artifact as well enters battlefield with 3 coin counters on it. By tapping, remove a coin counter from it and make a treasure token. So this can be 4 artifacts for the price of 1, a massive cost reduction for your commander that you can help out with early. Arcane Signet, even just your mana rocks essentially count for 2. Artifact that costs 2, very efficient, taps for 1 mana and your commander's color identity. Yeah, there's a lot of mana rocks out there that are very efficient that you can utilize. And yeah, this one again basically counts for 2 for your commander, because it's also going to reduce the cost by 1 just by being in play. And of course, on top of that, I should mention, yeah, reducing the cost of your artifacts you're casting for free, essentially off the top of your library as well. And speaking of free, I mean, how about just utilizing a land slot to help you out as well, like a Darksteel Citadel, a land that can be fantastic for you, artifact land, indestructible, taps for a colorless. You can utilize utility lands like this in a great way for a monocolored commander like this one. This one, basically, again, it counts for 2 for your commander. Again, it can tap for a mana to cast your commander, or other things as well, but also, yeah, also reduces the cost of it and your other artifacts as well that you're casting off the top of your library, because it is an artifact. Joyous Familiar helps reduce cost in multiple ways. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. That affects artifacts and legendaries, so helps not only your commander in 2 ways. Obviously, again, this is an artifact, and on top of its, cost reduction too. And then also helps your artifact casting as well. But also your artifacts can help the casting of other things as well. Inspiring Sanctuary, non-artifact spells you cast have improvise, which means that your artifacts can help cast those spells. You can tap them essentially for 1 mana apiece. So any of your artifacts now can help you cast your non-artifact spells. This can be massive and help you do a lot of crazy things. Yeah, I think this commander has a good amount of potential. There's a lot of crazy things that you can do with it. And yeah, you can get it out incredibly quickly by just flooding the board in absolutely no time with artifacts. But now it's time for us to move on to number 2 with Graz, Unstoppable Juggernaut, a 7/5 Juggernaut that costs 8 mana that says, Juggernauts you control attack each combat of Fable. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls, and other creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/3 and are Juggernauts in addition to other creature types. Now, this commander can be a massive pump effect in a way for your army. Just make a ton of creatures. Well, most of the time, probably a lot of creature tokens. Just even low to the ground creature tokens. Doesn't matter if they're 1/1s, because once this is in play, they are 5/3. Sure, you have to attack with them, but it's good to be aggressive with that. You can just demolish your opponents with your army that essentially gets a massive boost. And yeah, if you're playing against a very unlucky Arcades the Strategist player, they're not going to be able to block you because it can't be blocked by walls. Your Juggernauts cannot be blocked by walls. Now, is that, a little specific? Yeah, but it's very flavorful, very fun. I think this commander has got a lot of potential. There's a lot of exciting things that you can do with it. And again, you can just turn your tiny army into an unstoppable force. I mean, of course, just even with a mere battle sphere, you can see the potential of this commander, the amount of power that it can just give your creatures. A 4/7 mirror construct enters the battlefield, you make 4 1/1 mirror tokens. Now, normally that would be, 8 power in total, but with this commander in play, every single one of your creatures are 5/3 Juggernauts, which means that you have 25 total power across 5 bodies, again, for just 7 mana with this. Trading Post, a great flexible card. One that has a lot of abilities, one of those being pay 1, tap, pay 1 life, create a 0/1 goat creature token, which again, 0 power, does nothing for you, usually, except for, block. But with this commander, that little goat is now a Juggernaut goat, a 5/3 that can do a lot of work for you. And yeah, we even have some lands that can make a lot of tokens as well. Found to the consoles. Test for a cost, or we pay 5 tap and sacrifice it, make 2 1/1 Thopters with flying. Now those Thopters, again, normally would just be little 1/1s with flying, but now they are 5/3 flyers, some really heavy hitters and get through on your opponents. And again, this just comes on a land and just getting your commander into play. But how about Orochi Hatchery? A massive play can be had with this one, or many massive plays. XX to actually cast it, enters battle with X charge counters on it, pay 5 tap, make that many 1/1 green snakes. So yeah, you can make a ton of green snakes with this, a ton of 1/1s. that again would just be tiny 1/1s, but again with your commander, they are 5/3s. Again, a massive amount of damage can be dealt with this army that you can create throughout the game. Speaking of which, Captain's Claws. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. When equipped creature attacks, you get a 1/1. That's tapped and attacking. Now again, normally that'd just be a tiny little 1/1, but with this commander, a 5/3 coming at the opponent as well. This can build up your army quite quickly. Inquisitorial Rosette, an even better equipment in this deck. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you get a 2/2 token with vigilance. That's attacking, and then attacking creatures gain menace until end of turn. So now your Juggernauts that are coming through, again 5/3s, including the one that you just made, are also going to have menace, which means that your opponents have to dedicate 2 creatures for each one that they want to block. So this can be a great way to help get your army through. Yeah, I think this commander, again, has a lot of fun potential. Again, a way to take advantage of a lot of low-to-the-ground creatures and a lot of low-to-the-ground, creature tokens that you can make, making them into an unstoppable force. But now for the moment that you've all been waiting for all episode, the Golden Pig of Phyrexia, all will be one, and the all will be one precons. That's right, my number 1 commander, my favorite commander. It is Urtet, Remnant of Memnarch, a 2/2 legendary artifact creature mirror that costs 3 that says, whenever you cast a mirror spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. And on top of that, beginning of combat on your turn, untap each mirror you control. And on top of that, pay Wooburg, tap, you get 3 counters on each mirror you control, activate only during your turn. That's right, Mirror Tribal Commander, 5-color Mirror Tribal is finally here thanks to Urtet. It has a ton of potential. Again, it can help make you a lot of mirror throughout the game. Whenever you're casting your mirror, you get an extra mirror that comes along with that. Beginning of your combat, you get to untap all your mirror, which has a lot of potential, especially with specific mirror. And of course, hey, your mirror might be small to start off with, but you can make them quite massive quite quickly by getting a lot of counters on them. I mean, again, this just has the potential of, if you have the mana for it, getting 6 counters on all your creatures without any other untap effects, because this commander untaps all of your mirrors. So yeah, this commander, I think a lot of players out there, including myself, are very excited about. And in my opinion, is definitely worthy of the title of Golden Pig. First up, even a very simple mana dork like Silver Mirror, and yeah, there are 5 of these, 1 for each color, can be fantastic with this commander. Low to the ground, 2 mana, taps for a single mana. Again, when you cast this, you are getting a little buddy that comes along with it. Again, it's just a 1/1 mirror, which can have a lot of potential, but also this can tap for a mana, which again is going to untap, so you can tap it again or utilize it in combat if you need to. Speaking of which, Palladium Mirror, 2/2 for 3 mana, taps for 2. So this one, again, you can basically get 4 mana out of in a single turn, thanks to this commander. Mirror Welder, one that can utilize a lot of different abilities. A 1/4 mirror that has imprint, tap, exile target artifact card from a graveyard, and it's going to have all activated abilities of all cards exile with it. And yeah, there can be some pretty fantastic ones that you can stack on top of this. And of course, you can do this multiple times in a turn again, because your commander is going to help untap your mirror. Speaking of mirror, of course, we've got some great utility mirror like Shimmer Mirror. It has flash and says you may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. So basically, you have a Dalkin Ori for your artifact spells. Yeah, play in your opponent's turns, do a lot of exciting things. And when it comes to exciting, one of the most exciting things when it comes to this commander is Mirror Entity. This is a changeling, so yeah, technically it is a mirror. It has pay X until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. So this is a great way to basically pump your entire team. Again, your commander can get counters on top of your creatures. Again, 3 counters each time. This one can adjust all your creatures' base power and toughness. So kind of like a massive pump effect on top of that to make your army hit even harder. And yeah, like I mentioned, say changeling, it counts as a mirror. Song of Freyles can help your team even more. It's a saga that has lore counters 1 and 2. Say, until your next turn, creature you control gain tap at 1 mana of any color. So now all of your creatures are mana dorks, which again, untap thanks to your commander. And then also the third one is you get a +1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance, trample, and destruct until end of turn. Can make your army into a deadly machine. Yeah. This commander, I think, has a lot of potential. I think a lot of players out there are going to be really excited about it. Again, many players, including myself, have been waiting for a 5-color Mirror Tribal commander for such a long time. And now Urtet is finally here. So again, Urtet, congratulations on your first place finish. And again, a quick reminder that, yeah, my Golden Pig selections were based on my favorite commanders from this set and the precons. But if you are looking for my breakdown of the most powerful commanders from this set and the precons, make sure to look out for my tier ranking episode that should be coming out in the near future. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.